You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
It has been a long winter of hibernation for yours truly, but with some odd games remaining in this season, I'm cooking. I'm ready to go, and the Stanley Cup playoffs just around the corner. It's time for the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take, presented by Bet365, Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. How are you, Rosie?
This is a big one for you, Nicky Bobby. I thought that the regular season doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you face in the playoffs and everything's blah. What's gotten into you?
It's not a big one at all. They play Florida 3 times in the last 17, 18 games of the season. So they're going to play them inevitably again in like 2 weeks. But
And they all matter.
I think it's a bit of a measuring stick game, albeit there is an asterisk. I mean, they're missing half their team. Ekblad's suspended. But I think it is big for the Maple Leafs to come out there and at least show some people, show the Panthers, show the fan base that they're cooking. They're ready to go. They've been in a bit of a slumber lately.
I would agree, man. I think it's huge. Yeah, they got some people out. Last time we played these Panthers, we were missing half of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I do not think in the last several years, at least, that I have cared as much in the standings in the last, 15 to 20 games coming down the stretch as I have this year. I think it is bloody important, and it is wild that we do play those Florida teams that we are in a race with several times. I love it.
Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. I'm not sure how much games out of market you've been watching the last, say, 3-4 days, but you can tell the playoffs are in the air. Just the skirmishes, the after the whistle curriculars, the Calgary game last night with Vancouver. We saw it to an extent with Detroit and Buffalo the other night. Like, there's some animosity. The Boston Bruins. Like, I love this time of year when it just gets real for me.
Big time. That's a good way to say the playoffs are in the air. You feel a hint of it, and even just an extra point, say you get to overtime or a shootout and you get that extra one, guys are going ballistic. It's going to be a hell of a haul. I think that a lot of years the standings are kind of not set, but there's a couple of teams jostling and maybe a wild card will sneak in. Okay, fine. It seems like there's a lot up for grabs through both conferences this year. There is a lot of not tension, but anticipation in the air, and everyone's rooting for their team, and the teams are well aware of what's going on. It's exciting, man. It's been a lot of good hockey this year, from the Four Nations to this setup to the playoffs. I just think we're in for an absolute treat in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, I think this playoffs are going to be incredible. I'm not just saying that too. Like, there's a lot of really good teams, and you just talk about the standings. Like, Winnipeg's been far and away the best team in the NHL this season, specifically in the Western Conference. For me, the East is wide open. Like, you could probably make a case for 5 or 6 teams to go substantially far, and the Leafs are among them, in my opinion.
Yeah, big time. It kind of looked like there was some steps taken back, and it was like, anyone could kind of come up from, not the traditional recent powerhouses and do something. But lo and behold, with the exception of Boston, now the same figures are still there, and there's a bunch of others up for grabs. You mentioned Winnipeg in the West, but in the East, like the Capitals, it's so weird to me. Like, after the trade deadline, and you watch some analysts, and they're just going bananas over, Colorado and Dallas in the West, and talking huge about the Florida team and stuff. And no one even, like, it's like I'd be so insulted if I was either a Washington Capitals fan or a Winnipeg Jets fan. It's like everyone just assumes, oh, they're not for real. And over an 82 game season, which, we're past 60 now, they've racked up a lot of points. It kind of blows my mind that people blow them off a little bit.
Nicole Tack writes in, going to the game tonight from London, Ontario. Go Leafs, go. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Richmond Row, by the way. You want to talk about streets? I've had some time on Richmond Row down in London, Ontario. Went to Fanshawe for a couple of years. What a time. What a place. Of course, the home right now of Easton Cowan.
London! I cannot hear London, Ontario without just very vividly.
Your boy? Kadri.
Yeah. God, that kid was in love with Lundo. Everything Lundo. And they got a pretty sick franchise there with the Knights and a lot of product coming out of there. So I've never partied there. So maybe I should Maybe I should venture out that way. I think I'd be the old guy in the group, that's for sure.
Probably. And I think I've told this story before, but one time I ordered pizza when I was at school and some guy showed up to my door wearing a name tag and it just said Kadri on it. I think it was like Nas's like uncle or something like that. I'm like, you just go with one name? Like he legit just went with one name. He just went with Kadri. And this is when Kadri was picking up steam too in the OHL.
I get the most attention this way.
Yeah.
Funny kid,
Maybe
man.
better tips.
Still got it. See his goal last night. He's got some
Oh,
feist in him,
yeah.
starting overtime. He's still got it, that old Nazim the Dream.
Hey, he gives me a bit of hope, right? Because what was the knock on Kadri? Obviously, a bit too fierce when it came to the playoffs and taking suspensions, but he got to that summit, and we're still waiting for a lot of those Leafs guys to get there.
With Colorado. I know, looking back, it's like, God, for the piss and vinegar that they've been lacking the last year, he had it in spades, just channeled it kind of poorly. I think he just got too jacked up wanting to make his mark and kept getting suspended and hurting the team. But it'd be nice to have some of that this year, boys. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Emilio writes in, Rosie, what's your response to Emilio?
Emilio!
I hope your wife's home and like, what is happening? Is your wife home?
Nah, she went to Vancouver. Me and the boys this weekend, baby. I got to make some plans.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. We like going to movies. I teach them how to sneak candy in. Lots of opportunities.
I could only, okay. So if you like, I was laughing the other day, just talking about fighting and we saw the Superman punch. Like, have you started to already teach your kids like how to properly like grapple, like on the rink at least?
No. We had a parent kids game the other day, and a couple of kids that are graduating to U15 will be playing hit hockey. We got this one big kid that's played a couple, and he's like, I'm going to take you out. I'm like, just fucking try it. So a couple of kids came at me, and they just bounced off. It was hilarious to give them a little reality check. But I'm just teaching them how to, like, be strong on their skates and be able to lean on a guy. And,
yeah,
you know, it's funny when they start to get that, because the difference between just getting pushed off a puck or falling over every time there's any kind of contact and then being able to be strong on your edges is huge. So we're there. We're not, I honestly, if I had to bet, I would say my two boys would never be in a real true hockey fight in their entire lives.
We've never addressed this, by the way, since it transpired, I believe, last week. And you were at a attorney for your kids and you filmed a game of mini sticks, and the negativity in the thread, and X speaks volumes, but the negativity in a thread for something harmless like that was insanity to me.
Yeah, it was overwhelmingly positive, but maybe 5 or 10% negative. But yeah. So I tweeted out a picture of the kids playing mini sticks. And I didn't really caveat it with the fact that, hey, listen, we had the whole floor to ourselves and we shut it down at a really good hour.
Who cares? They're kids playing mini sticks. Like, adults will understand that, you know?
I get it. But also I'm kind of always like the don't draw a lot of attention to yourself. Don't get on people's nerves kind of guy, especially if they get through. And when they're flying up and down the hallways, running around like maniacs, banging, and you're like, say they're doing that at 11 o'clock at night, I'll lose my mind. Like, that shit doesn't fly. We're all about cleaning up the dressing room when you're done, leaving the place better than you found it, teaching them that stuff. So I get that not every team does that, and people that live in hotels a lot, like, see a Pee-wee hockey team come in and want to kill everybody. But there was some other, like even the fact that I said not an iPad in sight. Like, I just love the fact that these kids are playing with their hands and making teams. And this guy was just furious that I knocked iPads. I'm like, holy fuck, buddy, get a grip on reality. But yeah, it went off a little bit, that tweet, I think.
Oh, it blew up. And again, naturally, X just sends you like the negative comments. There's a lot of positives. And I'm like, this is such a harmless, cool throwback picture of kids playing mini sticks in 2025, an era of the phone. And there's actually people out there trying to pull negativity from this story. In support of Sick Kids KPG, who was there at the Flight Night event over the weekend at Greta. Thank you so much for being there once again. I don't buy what Merrick said about teams not confirming what elite trades, whether they will sign. You have to do due diligence when you spend assets and buy assets. You know, maybe to tie a bow on the whole conversation about Mikko Rantanen, we had Jeff Merrick on yesterday, and we talked about Eric Tulsky, and there was a bit of pushback from Merrick where I said, I think Carolina just botched this thing. Do you agree?
I think they made out at the end of the day looking all right, but it was very touch and go for a minute there. I think it had potential to be a complete disaster, but if you look at what they had to start and what they ended up with, you could say, okay, that's all right. If you're thinking of the picks they got, fine. I don't think it ended up being a disaster, but it's not how you do business. I think it was totally reckless, and the fact that they made that deal without knowing that he wasn't willing to re-sign with you is insane. A player of that level, with the demands that type of a contract, you didn't even know that you had no chance to sign that guy. That's wild. That's just a lack of due diligence, if you ask me. But I like, yeah, it's wild that it's, and then on Twitter, like, people are like, they shouldn't have asked him for his trade. They didn't ask him for a trade. They just, and I'm like, okay, if you're a GM and you have the opportunity where you might lose a guy, you have an opportunity to replace him with someone like that. Yes, you still want him. Yes, you still very well may want to sign him. You're not doing your job if you don't say, hey, Mitch, there's an opportunity for this. What are your thoughts on it, blah, blah? Just kind of a gentle, where are you at with this? What do you think? I want to be here. I want to go on a run. I don't want to waive my no trade. I'm not going to. I'm not interested in being a rental somewhere. All right. No, 100%. Well, I'm glad you said that. There's a gentle way of doing that. Some people don't believe it. And then the fact that they have not negotiated one iota this whole year, I think, is absolute bullshit. I'm not saying they're at the table right now every day, but there's not a chance those two parties haven't spoken about where they somewhat are. And in my mind, they know they're a far ways apart, hence the interest in Rantanen.
I think it was a bit of a bluff on the Maple Leafs side. Like, I don't doubt their interest in Mikko Rantanen, but hey, Mitch, you don't want to negotiate? Well, this is what we have in play for you. Kind of hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Lots to discuss and break down on today's podcast. Firstly, I should tell you to check out the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips and guest Carter Hutton. Bring out the big guns for a big game here. It's the Leafs and Panthers at Scotiabank Arena. Speaking of which, we have the Keith market targeted today. We have two Keiths on the show. First time ever. We have Keith Tkachuk coming up in about 10 minutes here, and Keith Yandle, former member of the Florida Panthers, among other squads, NHL and TNTs with Spit and Chicklets as well coming up. So a jam-packed show today, Rosie.
Yeah, and if Jan's married him, he'd be Keith. Kind of crazy. No, good guess, man. It's be interesting to pick both of their brains.
What?
And
what did you just say? That
like
made
that?
no sense.
It's 2025, buddy.
Oh, true. Okay.
Yeah, excited for these guys. Pick their brains a little bit, see what's going on. Obviously, we'll go touch on the Four Nations there with Keith Tkachuk. Oh no, fuck! What am I saying? That didn't even.
Yeah,
make
I know.
sense. Sorry.
It didn't make sense because his last name's not Keith. First name's Keith. And then you said it's 2025, and I said, okay, next year's 2026.
Yeah, I totally botched that. My bad. It's trying to be outrageous.
Yeah, no, you were trying your best. You're trying your best to be racy. Didn't
Duncan Keith. That's what I'm thinking. Producer Vic comes through again. If we didn't have this guy,
we wouldn't be anywhere.
I think we'd have a show.
We would be doomed. We'd be done at episode 6.
Last names are Keith. Oh God, I'm an idiot.
Nailed that, Rosie. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And also, don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Think you know hockey? Play Sobeys My NHL Picks weekly for the chance to win big prizes like a trip for 4 to this year's Stanley Cup Final. A new slate of games opens up every Thursday from now until the end of the regular season. So download the Sobeys app and start playing today for your chance to win. I put in my picks yesterday. I was 4 for 5 last week. Got screwed by the Maple Leafs, if you can believe it, losing to Colorado. Here are my picks for this week. Starts today. Edmonton. I like the Oilers over the New Jersey Devils, Rosie.
I like it. Yeah, it's a fun thing to do, man. Good time of year as well if you want to get ahead of some things, if you can tell who's extra hungry for those points in the standings.
Leafs and Panthers. Really looking forward to this game. It looks like Chris Tanev could make his return as Phil Myers is doing extra work after the morning skate. Your thoughts, Jason Rosehill?
Oh, dog! Yeah. If you're getting shit bagged at the end of morning skate, you ain't playing. Although I have been bagged to hell and back and still played that night, which is not fun.
On Broadway.
Oh, that too. No, I did it on a different one. Tim Hunter absolutely mercilessly ruined me until I threw up in the bench, and then I get a call that I'm playing that night. Oh Lord. Yeah, that's crazy. I saw the fact that he's close, and then like, does he play tonight? I'm like, not a chance. I'm sick of this. He's close bullshit, and it's a week later. I don't even listen to the reports anymore. But if he goes tonight, oh baby, what a great one to come back for. I really think they've been missing something since he got injured, and the something is himself. It is his aura, his ability, his contributions to the lineup and the game when he's playing, and I would absolutely love to have him in tonight. I know they're banged up over there, and I don't care. I want this W against the Panthers. I think it's going to come down to a very small handful of points at the end of the day on who's going to win this division, and these two will be huge if we can get them.
I love the commentary yesterday as the Leafs returned to the practice and got set for this game. Craig Berube saying, got to have mental toughness. Matthew Nye saying it'll be a playoff style. Benoit saying, have to show up tomorrow. We know it's a big game. This is going to be a playoff game. It just jacks me up. I'm going to be there, actually.
It sounds like they're prepared mentally to me. And, sometimes you're an 82 game season with not this Leafs team in general or specifically, but just in the past, you've questioned, like, you've been like, I want to hear that stuff. Like, do they realize how big this is? Do they understand, like, this is going to be another level? I really want them to be focused. A huge start is very important. All that stuff. It sounds like they're saying all the right things, and Craig Berube has got their heads screwed on just right. So I'm looking for a good start there. And I know why they're saying that stuff the past handful of games, whether they've started well, fine, but then they let off the gas and they don't have that killer instinct, and they have blown a bunch of leads. At least they snuck last one out, but not an ideal way to go about playing in the National Hockey League. So I think they're addressing that with their words, and hopefully they do it with their actions.
As Rosie alluded to, big game in the standings as these three teams here, the two in Florida and the Leafs, duke it out for the Atlantic Division title. The Leafs are 2 back of the Panthers, 1 game in hand, and they're 3 points back, of Tampa, or ahead of Tampa, both at 64 games. So if you win this one against the Panthers, you still have that game in hand. That's why it's massive to try to find a way to win this one in regulation. I think the Panthers are going to be a bit pissed off after what transpired the other night in Boston. They were up 2-0, allow 3 unanswered goals, and lose that game in regulation. So no doubt you're going to get your best. What'd you think of Sam Bennett the other night? I'm sure he caught the highlight at the very least, him going toe-to-toe with Nikita Zadorov and grabbing Pasternak while he's at it too, man. He just brings everybody into the melee. Eh?
I know. It's sure a mismatch as far as size, like that Zadorov. I'd love to dust him. He's so confident when he's got a guy underneath his nipples throwing him around. And
you think
he's tried to go after Bennett
think you
before.
can take, in your prime, you think you could take Zadorov?
I think so.
He's like, what, 6'6", 6'7"?
Is he that big? Yeah, he's a big boy, no doubt. And seems to have confidence. But I don't know. I'm probably biased. I just feel like the guys this day just don't quite have that, and in my era, I don't think all the guys quite had that Wendell Clark, Bob Probert type of toughness to them either. But maybe, you never know. 10 times, if you fought 10 times, I think I'd come out ahead. But if you just go once, who knows what happens? You roll the dice. You gotta believe in yourself out there. But
there's just
funny. Do you see Bennett say, like, you're like 8 feet tall, man? I don't know if that was a previous game or not, but he's going, and I was like, oh dear, man, you got so much reach given up there. And then he's grabbing on to Pasternak too. It was awesome. I loved it.
It's just wild to me. Like we're eons away from July 1, and the rumors are already getting louder and louder. If Sam Bennett gets to July 1, the Leafs will be knocking on that door. How are you?
And is Ekblad up too?
Ekblad's up too. The only thing with Bennett, and you can probably speak to this, who his agent is? Darren Ferris. You know who's one of his clients? Mitch Marner. I don't know if that goes hand in hand or doesn't, or maybe extracts the most dollars possible in that.
Interesting. At the end of the day, it's up to the player, but yeah, not surprising that a lot of the big boys got the big boy agents going.
Tammy, thank you so much for the super chat in support of Sick Kids. According to Kipper, Tree Living messed up by not asking Mitch Marner to waive his no movement clause when the Avs first put out Rantanen on the block. Mitch Marner could be playing with McKinnon by now. I would bet my non-existent nuts on that. So maybe Tammy is a dude.
Tammy's non-existent nuts. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't think Mitch is
potty mouth Tammy
in doing that. I don't think he's interested in waiving his no move. I think he wants to try to win here. I wouldn't be surprised if he extends. I just know that I do know that he thinks quite highly of himself and is going to demand a pretty penny. Again, it's always interesting seeing guys sign after the superstar on the team and wanting more. And it's kind of like, how do you justify that? And then they're like, well, the cap goes up, so a percentage of this. It's like, oh God. But I don't think if they asked Mitch to waive earlier that it would have had any difference in getting a deal done.
My apologies, Crick Commander. Thank you so much for calling me out. Tammy did add his boyfriend, McKinnon. I did not add that part into the super chat. If you do recall, I believe the pair, among others, skated in Aspen, and Mitch Marner looked amazing last summer. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember it being really big news.
It's a big story in September that Marner skated with all these all-stars and he looks superb. But he has looked good this year.
He's so ready this year, man. I watched him. There's a clip of him totally skating hard.
Dude, he's been good. I can't rag on Marner right now, but
he's dominant.
The power play, I want to get to that too. Since the Four Nations break, I crunched the numbers. I'd stayed home all week after the deadline just to crunch these numbers. 9 games, they're 9 for 28. That's 32%. Is the power play back, Rosie?
Who doggy? Yeah, it certainly isn't dog shit anymore. It looks sharp. I mean, their entries are a little bit smoother. Even their second units getting her set up and getting chances and opportunities. I think they just found something that worked, kind of cracked it a little bit. You get enough reps and you get, a couple layers of success going and you're like, I feel good. Like, and now I know where to go. And then they're like, I know where so-and-so is going. And they're just kind of on the same page, which is huge, man. You just could not possibly think you're going to have the success that this team wants with the power play that they had early in the season, or God forbid last year in the playoffs. You got to notch a couple when you get opportunities. I don't love how heavy the league is on special teams. I would love just to see them play and go to war, and they do to a point in the playoffs, but that those special teams nonetheless are still very important, especially in the playoffs. So it's good to see them clicking, man. Those numbers are unreal. You clip it at 30%, that's top of the league. So it's great to see, man, that those frustrations were getting old.
They were. And so the big story here as we get set for Leafs Panthers on this Thursday night, Chris Tanev, I believe, deemed a game time decision. As we talked about, Phil Myers taking extra work after the morning skate. So trending towards the return of Tanev, who missed 6 games. Been a lot of noise over the last couple of days, and I'm looking forward as well to Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton making their home debuts. Where do you think is the best spot in the lineup for these two guys? Because we sort of joked when they picked up Laughton, at some point we're going to see him on the wing in the top 6. Maybe it happens sooner rather than later here.
I don't see it, man. Then you just have the same kind of problem potentially that you did. I see him as a third line center. I think they need more than 2 games to find someone that gets some chemistry going with them. I could see him complimenting McMahon very well, and finding something with Domi. I don't know who. I don't have a crystal ball, but the idea is to find someone that complements him and he complements them, and get a 3-man unit going where you can kind of rely on him. We've seen that with the third line before this season. It wasn't totally consistent or earth-shattering, but you want someone that can be effective in one way, shape, or form. I think that Laughton is very capable of that. Again, 2 games on the road with the whirlwind that he's been going through. I think it takes time to find that. And Carlo, I don't know. I mean, I've mentioned it before, everyone's talking about who can make Morgan Rielly better. It always just drives me nuts. It's like, you're supposed to be this star defenseman making 7.5. You're supposed to make anyone else better, but it's always this constant struggle to find someone for Morgan Rielly to play with. It very well could be Carlo. I don't know. It's not my job to figure out who, but you have added to that decor a very capable player. So it's up to the staff in the next handful of games, I'd say 10, 12, to figure out what that is, and then really drive it home and get some familiarity there.
This has to be the last dance for Morgan Rielly. Like, how many different D partners do you need? And now you bring in Brandon Carlo. If that doesn't work, I don't know what to tell you. Like, Brandon Carlo is your prototypical stay-at-home guy. I got to give them a couple games, maybe a 10 to 15 game stretch to figure things out here. But it's got to work with somebody, not just Luke Shen.
I know. I don't know. I've never seen a player not play well and all the focus is on the partner of that player. Like, what the hell is that? It's odd. But I keep going back to last game, that backdoor almost tap-in backhand to essentially win the game would have been so massive for him and his confidence. But lo and behold, you got a paddle on it. I want something to break loose. I want the levee to break loose where that kid can find his confidence and start to do what he's done in the past.
The following interview is brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar. Whether it's before, during, or after the game, it's the place to be on King Street West. Awesome street food and wicked arcade games. 590 King Street West, Greta Bar. Let the games begin as you bring in an absolute legend here on Leafs Morning Take. It is Keith Tkachuk. Big Walt, thank you so much for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. How are you feeling for this one tonight, Leafs Panthers?
Well, it's going to be an exciting game. Both teams are trying to, fight for the top spot, but it's a big game for both teams. I just think Florida has that attitude. Wherever they finish, they don't mind who they play.
Keith, I see you got your USA garb still on there. Take us back to the Four Nations there. I think that blew everyone's doors off as far as expectations. What was it like to see your boys compete at the level that they did, specifically in that game against Canada?
Well, first of all, it was great for them to finally play on the same team at this highest level. As a fan, it was incredible. For no matter who you were cheering for, it was a great tournament. Sitting in the stands and watching, being close enough where you could see how fast the game is, how physical the game is, and there was no room out there. But I think the NHL, the NHLPA just did remarkable in selling the game in areas where a lot of people didn't follow it. But it was great for the game. Unfortunately, USA lost, but Canada, played a great game, and it was incredible. However long, it felt like we were there for 2 weeks, but it was well worth it. I think it was great for the game, and happy to be there watching the boys.
Canada-US round one. As a father, what goes through your head as you watch the beginning part of that game and the couple scraps there?
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that, and both teams respect each other. They play hard against each other, and I thought it was great. I mean, I didn't know what was happening till I was sitting in the stands and kind of seeing the circling and talking, and I tapped my wife. I said, I think something's happening right now. And your heart stops no matter what. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. But, my heart was still racing for about 10 minutes after that. And then Brady goes and does that right away. And JT Miller, I think it got everybody into it. The building was electric in Montreal. It's just the history in itself being in that arena with all those banners and all the people that have retired there, the great hockey players. Montreal and Boston both did a great job with the fans.
I believe it. If you take us over to the Florida Panthers with Matthew's team, all of a sudden there's a dogfight that's emerged in that Atlantic Division. Big matchup tonight with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do you care when you look at it from kind of more of a fan's perspective who the Florida Panthers play in the first round?
No, I think they showed the last 2 years. It doesn't matter who they play. Where they finish. Their team, when healthy, is built for a long stretch, and you got to respect what Toronto has done. I think they brought in one of the best coaches around in Craig Berube, who's not going to let anything slide. I think it's a good matchup for both teams, and it's just weird. One of the top three are going to be out in the first round, whether it's Florida, Tampa, or Toronto, with the way it's laid out for the new playoff format. So. It's going to be a great game tonight. I know Florida's coming off a tough loss to Boston, the way they lost, but this is where things get tight, and it's going to be a great game.
Time flies. I can't believe it's been 2 years since your infamous interview on TSN Radio with my boy AK and obviously Carlo Koliakovo. But you called the Panthers soft. Ever since, they've been a different team. What did that conversation go like with your son when he found and got word of that?
It didn't go very well. I was kind of shut off from all media requests after that. Matthew wouldn't let me do anything. I just, it was emotional. They just come off a terrible game against Ottawa, and I felt like Ottawa embarrassed them. And I don't know. I'm not going to say I regret it because I don't. But they basically did what they had to do and made it all the way to the finals, and now they're a Stanley Cup champion. So I probably shouldn't have done it, but Matthew's still pretty upset with me about that.
Take us back to June, the Stanley Cup and everything that comes with that. Obviously a family affair. even considering you have another son that plays on a different team, everyone was involved in it. What was that experience like? Everything you thought?
It was unbelievable. I was so proud of Matthew. I mean, he's a true professional, and it's all hockey with him, the way he carries himself, and just to be a part of that with the family, and the first time a Tkachuk name was on the Stanley Cup, I couldn't be more proud. And things got interesting in that series against Edmonton, being up 3 games to none, and then go to a game 7. But Matthew was confident. Myself, my wife, and the rest of us were a little bit nervous, and then to have Brady there, yeah, he would like to be on the ice, but we support each other. We're a close family, and it was great to be a part of that, and to be on the ice, seeing your son celebrate it, and how hard he's worked from day one, and his teammates, and to see what they went through. It was an incredible experience for sure.
And the fascination too, like Brady's starting to cook big time here with the Ottawa Senators, and in these parts, the Battle of Ontario, we grew up on it. Rosie played in some of them back in the day, obviously in the regular season. But what do you think that would be like Ottawa, Toronto in the playoffs?
Well, it'd be great. I mean, it's been a while since Ottawa's been there. They still got some work to do, but I like the way they're playing right now, and they're clicking on all cylinders. But as every team goes through ups and downs, you got to find a way. And if that happens, I mean, I think it'd be great for Canada. I think it'd be great for the NHL, and it'll be a heck of a series for sure.
Matthew Nyes is a player on the Leafs that is American, and we have had him on the show, and he's done nothing but take massive steps forward and in the right direction every step of the way in his short pro career. He gets compared to your style of play sometimes. Have you had a chance to watch him play, and what do you think of him?
Oh, he's done great. I remember following him at the University of Minnesota under Bob Motzkow, who's a friend of mine. And, he's got the skating, he's got the skill. And I've seen, I mean, he's a physical specimen. And to see him use his frame, to fight for space, and obviously to play with great players, he knows what his role is. And, obviously seeing him scrap, I don't know, was it a week ago or something against Vegas, whatever it was. He did a good job. And, I think he's only going to get better. Sky's the limit for him. And, when you can bring that size and that strength in the playoffs, because the ice does shrink in the playoffs. So you have to go out and, create room for yourself, but also create room for others, especially guys who are so skilled on that team like Austin, Marner, Nylander, and guys like that, and Tavares. I think, it's beneficial to have a player like that. And he's going to learn a lot under Craig Berube. Craig Berube played over 1,000 games. Was a tough son of a gun, and he led the St. Louis Blues to a championship, in 19. So I think it'll be good for him, and he's a heck of a player to watch.
Talk about Craig Berube, this Leafs team, and we talk about, the soft impact the last couple of years, and we talk about your comments, but obviously a different looking Leafs team this year. Do you think it's for the better? Like, do you think it's going to make them harder to play against in the playoffs here?
Well, just having, Chief on the bench, brings a lot of respect to your team. And I see what he did in St. Louis. He treats everybody the same. He wants you to play hard, north-south hockey, physical. And he's going to do that. And he's a guy you honestly don't want to let down. And guys love playing for him. So I'm happy for Chief. I'm not going to be rooting for him tonight, but he's a great, great friend and a great guy. And, wish him nothing but the best.
Austin Matthews, obviously on that American team, you got to see a bit of. He's having a kind of a down year compared to his normal standards this year. What do you see out of him? You think he's ready to maybe make a push with the Leafs?
Yeah, I've known Austin for a lot of years. He played with Matthew at the program. Comes from a great family. I mean, he's 6'2", 6'3", can skate, and it's the details that I love in his game. Yeah, everybody looks at the goal scorer, and he's an incredible goal scorer, got a great shot, but his two-way details are what makes him such a great player. I mean, he's tough to play against. He's stripping pucks. He does the little things. He skates for a big man with ease. So, sometimes it takes a few years to learn from things, and he's going to be that guy. I mean, he's a legit one center, and he makes people around him better. And I think you'll see a different Austin Matthews this year for sure, and he's not only going to get better, he's still 27 years old, I believe, and he's got another 15 years in his career at least.
The biggest reason I think a lot of people think this Leafs team is on the right pathway is the crease, and a guy you know pretty decently, obviously with Matthew in Florida, is Anthony Stolarz, who was behind Sergei Bobrovsky there for a couple years. But how impressed with you have you been with Stolarz taking that next step at his age in his career? He's been a monster this season for the Leafs.
Well, he was unreal last year for Florida. I mean, he's big. He understands what his role was last year, and I think he gave him confidence. And coming back, or going to Toronto, I mean, he's going to bring that winning experience and winning environment and help out. And between him and Joseph, you ride the guy that's hot, and he's been there before. He's been put in situations where they needed him. And, being a backup, I think everybody knows you kind of get the crappy games, the back-to-backs, the tough scheduling. And, he did a great job for Florida last year, and you got to love the size.
The last thing I want to touch on, it's a tough time of year with the trade deadline. We saw Brady get a bit emotional, losing his friend, going to the Buffalo Sabres. Staying grounded as an athlete, like, is that something sort of you learn or over time? And like, how did you teach that to your kids? Because I think it's so important. Every time, I've covered this game in this league for 15 years, media members and fans alike, like, you lose the fact that these guys are just human beings too.
Yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, the initial reaction is very difficult because Brady and Josh were best of friends dating back, when they first went to the program, the U.S. program, and it's not just on the ice chemistry you have; it's the off ice, when you're away from the rink. But I think they're both young, and they, it's tough. It really is. But I try to explain to Brady that unfortunately life goes on, and these decisions will always happen, and sometimes things you have no control over. But it was difficult for him because they were such great friends. But at the end of the day, you have to move on. You wish him the best, and Brady's going to miss him, but they'll always be friends. And the ultimate goal is to get in the playoffs, and I think Ottawa has to figure that out and try to get to that next level.
And I love from Brady's perspective, it's really amped his play up even more. He's been a beast since the trade deadline. And I just wanted to say, it really got me, man. You got the hoist Lord Stanley. What was that feeling last year? Like, I was starting to tear a bit, man. It got to me.
Yeah, I think it meant more. I mean, it meant a great deal for myself and my wife, but I think it meant a great deal for Matthew to be able to share that with us. And he did a great job, whether it was on the ice that night, in the locker room, the next couple of days, and even the way he handled himself when we got the cup for a couple of days in St. Louis. It's a hard trophy to win. There's 32 teams, and it's the most difficult trophy to win. But I was proud of him. He worked his butt off to get there, and I'm glad he was able to share with us.
Most importantly, you've raised your kids really, really well. Appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, and enjoy the game tonight.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Keith.
Anytime. That's Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk, just the first family of hockey, pretty much. When you think hockey now, you think the Tkachuk family.
It's crazy what level both those boys are on. I don't know
unreal.
if he envisioned that or not, but they are both studs, and he's probably having a hell of a time following both of them around.
Man, like, imagine having two kids with just absolute stallions. Like, they're elite level players in the league, and just watching them grow. You see Matthew win a cup, and now Brady's real elevating with Ottawa here, right?
Yeah, it'd be fun. I always think about that with my boys, but I think more if they became pro golfers, like what a hockey dad nerd. I'd be following them around inside the ropes, just every shot. It's pretty much what he's doing in the hockey sense. But goddamn, how do you have two kids that are that big of studs? Only thing I can compare it to is the Quinn family. But my goodness, he's having the time of his life. I think post playing career.
You mean the Hughes family, right?
What did I say?
The Quinn family.
Fuck, I'm losing her today.
You're on fire today, Rosie. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. As you bring in guest number 2 from the golf course, thank you so much for your time today. It is Keith Yandle. What's going on, Jens?
Oh, we don't have audio.
Sorry, we're going to try to connect with you one more time. We don't got the audio cooking here, so we'll try to reconnect with you. Keith Yandle's at the golf course and has graced us a couple minutes of his time. Maybe mid-round here, we're going to find out on that level. But, yeah, it's a pressure cooker of a game for sure, Rosie, when you look at the Leafs and Panthers tonight.
Yeah, we'll see what Jans thinks of it. Going back to Keith, I can't believe how much he sounds like Matthew. I didn't really
I
realize
know.
that. God, there's a lot of mannerisms and everything else that that are identical. Pretty funny, man. But like I said, the way he's following those kids around must be an absolute blast.
Yes. Do we have Keith now? Keith, we got you. We still don't have audio. Can you try just disconnecting and coming back one more time? Sorry. Appreciate it. Thanks, Keith.
Can't have
So
two
yeah,
interviews without a snafu.
yeah, I know. We were on fire there. I was coming in horny after the Keith Tkachuk interview, and I was like going to ask him, like, hey, what comes to mind when you see, because they were in the waiting room together. We saw Keith Yandle in the room with Keith Tkachuk and like what he thought. But yeah, clearly we botched that.
I know. You usually got to wrap things up when you see the guests get into the waiting room, and then we got two, and it's back to back. So we're on fire this week, man. But
I know.
One last try here.
Yeah, Keith, we have you.
Check.
There we
Can you
go.
Hey, what's going on, buddy? How are we?
I'm not good with this type of stuff. No, but what I was saying was tough act to follow coming after Big Walt. Obviously a legend of the game and what he did, and obviously what he's done with his boys too.
Oh, absolute stallion. So give us a lay of the land. You're at the course right now. Are you mid-round, pre-round? What's going on?
I'm on the 12th hole right now at the little snack shack, so had a couple minutes to kill not too many guys.
Where are you playing, Yans? You at the Grove?
I'm at the Grove, yep.
Oh, Lord. Caller's optional, too. You can do whatever you want around there, hey?
Yeah, I don't even have shorts on.
Good for you. Well, we won't take much time. I know you don't want to hold the tee box up, but big game here tonight against the Leafs and the Panthers here. What's your take on how that Atlantic is shaping up right now?
It's a gauntlet, I'll tell you that. It's a little different from when I came to Florida and how the Atlantic was shaping up. But yeah, absolute gauntlet right now. No easy games. I think tonight's going to be a one of those games where you see the playoff implications kind of ramp up. Guys going all out. I believe the Panthers were at the Hall of Fame with the rings and everything yesterday, so they're going to be ready to go and excited for this one tonight.
So in terms of the playoffs, and again, it's a bit of a bloodbath right now when it comes to the Atlantic Division. You got the Leafs, you got the Panthers, the Lightning. Hypothetically, the Leafs and the Panthers get together for a best of 7. What do you think Toronto would need to do? Do you think they're capable of beating the Panthers in a best of 7?
I tell you that I think that's why they made it 7 games. So because I think a series like that will go all 7. The way Toronto's played this year, it honestly looks like every team, especially in the East, kind of is gearing up to know that they're going to have to face Florida at some point. So I really like what Toronto did at the deadline, bringing in Carlo and Biscotti Lawton. So it's every team's kind of trying to get to where Florida is or has been the last 2 years. So I think with tonight, you're going to see, especially the new guys on both teams, showing what they can provide and show why those teams brought them in.
Yeah, you mentioned the likes of Scott Lawton. I played with him. I know you did too. Tell our fans who aren't as familiar with him what that guy brings to the table.
Just all-time guy. Off the ice, just an absolute character. I loved him in the locker room. I only played with him for a year, but one of my all-time favorite teammates, and just never has a bad day. Even though you look at him and with how ugly he is, you'd think he'd be having a lot of bad days, but he never brings it to the rink. He's always in a good mood, treats everyone unbelievable. Whether you're the Zamboni driver or the GM, he treats you the same. So just a class act all around. And then on the ice, he's just one of those guys that brings it every single night. I think a lot of his career, he's kind of got labeled as a third, fourth liner, but if you see him in practice, the amount of skill that he has, his knowledge of the game, you'd think he was a first liner. So I think he's a perfect guy to bring in. He can go up and down your lineup, playing key situations, and like we know how good he is in the locker room, how huge that is, especially in a place like Toronto where there's a lot of outside noise, and I think he's going to bring a nice calm demeanor to that locker room, especially come playoff time.
Yeah, and the best part for me is like he's a guy from the area who wanted to be home. Like I just loved his comments too about his dad being able to drive to his games. Like I love guys who want to be here and want to play for their hometown team, right?
100%, and especially there, when you grow up there, you know what comes with playing for the Leafs. The pressure that it has behind it. But you also know that, the good parts that come behind it. You know how well they're going to treat you. That everyone knows that they're a first-class organization. They do everything right. And I think for him, he's not a guy, especially later on in your career, where he's not probably afraid to come in there and be a guy, on the Leafs where, maybe in the beginning of his career, I think with anyone, if you start with a team that you're from, especially in a big market, would probably be tough. But I think he's at that perfect age where he's figured out the league. He knows what he's got to do every night to get ready for games. And I don't think this will hurt him at all.
Mm-hmm. Jens, what's your take on the whole Rantanen Marner saga that kind of went down at the end of the trade deadline there?
Whew. I'll tell you what, for being in the business like we are, it was great for content and for conversation pieces. But, if I'm the Carolina Hurricanes, I'd probably be a little sour if I'm a fan of their team. But honestly, I think he did the right thing by telling them he didn't want to be back there. He could have just, looked at that team in Carolina and, figured he had a chance to win it this year and just stay there and then leave them with nothing. So I think he did a good job of, telling them that he wanted out, and they were able to get some pieces back for him. But it was definitely, it honestly felt like a little bit more of the NBA than it did the NHL.
I love that, man. We need more of that in this league. Speaking of which, I thought it was kind of cool to hear and find out after the fact that the Leafs actually went to Mitch Marner, which I thought was a giant bluff. He's not waving, but do you think Marner re-signs in Toronto here?
Man, I don't know Mitch at all. I know he's from there, and he's one of those guys that he's handled that pressure of that city, and he's been on both sides of the good sides of the media and the bad sides. He's taken some heat, but he's also gotten a lot of love. So I think for him, it's just kind of one of those things, whether it's wearing on him a lot, where if you're playing in your hometown, you got to deal with a lot of people all the time. So he could want a fresh start. I don't want to speak for him, but it also could be one of those things too. If he was 50-50 on whether he wanted to come back, and then he hears, the GM calls him and asks him if he'll waive his no trade, then could be where he's like, okay, well, this summer I'm out of here. But I don't know. You never blame a guy for, wanting to, test the free agency and, try to see what else is out there.
Jens, you've worked with Craig Berube on the TNT panel a little bit. Obviously, they brought him in to try to change the genetic makeup of this team, specifically in the playoffs. What have you seen from Chief getting his hands on the Maple Leafs this year?
I think you just see a consistency where, I think in years past you'd see 4 or 5 games where they're playing unbelievable. You think they're the best team in the league, and then they have a 4 or 5 game stretch where, they're playing, pond hockey per se. But, I just really feel like their game has been in a good place, kind of steady all year, where, they don't have the, the big ebbs and flows that they've had in the past. And, I think with Chief, probably his way of coaching has been a little different of the coaches in the past there. And I think the guys in there too also know that, how tough he is, what he did as a player, and then obviously what he did as a coach too. And, they really respect him.
What's your read on Austin Matthews? We've been going back and forth. A lot of people think he's injured, hasn't been as crisp of a game, missing a lot of nets, but what's been your read on his play so far this season?
Yeah, those guys are I mean, because when those top echelon guys, they don't score for 2 or 3 games, you're like, oh my God, is something wrong with him? What's going on? Is he hurt? I think everyone in the league right now is probably banged up a little bit. So yes, I'm sure he's hurting with something that, it's, game, 65 of it, whatever it is. And it's, everyone's has their bumps and bruises, but he's such a gamer and such a good player. And, I don't think there's anything to worry about where you have to worry about his, where he's at come playoff time.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough for your time, and get back to the course, okay?
All right, boys. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy your round. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
There's Keith Yandle, an absolute stud, man. That's the first ever time we've interviewed somebody from their golf round, so appreciate that from him.
He must have missed a few putts out there. He's pacing around like a maniac.
I know.
But
dude, I made sure when I asked him, I was like, hey, is it cool that we interfere in your round? He's like, yeah, man, that's fine. What a guy.
I was thinking, how hard did you hound this guy to make him say yes in the 12th hole? So what he's playing is the Grove 23. For those of you who don't know, it's Michael Jordan's private club in Florida. And it is just next level. There's like less than 100 members there. The course is set up to favor Jordan's game. The carts go like 40 miles an hour. The drones deliver your beer and food. It's absolutely insane. I was supposed to play it last spring with Clark MacArthur, who has made his way into the membership there. I'm sure that's who's with Jans right now, but pretty special place. So I'm definitely a little bit jelly right now.
Former Leafs Morning Take guest Clark MacArthur.
It's correct. It's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, but I didn't, believe it or not, I didn't hound Jans a lot, man. I just said, hey, you want to come on? He's like, does it matter that I'm golfing? I was like, no, do your thing. The Wi-Fi was great. The connection, I was scared about the connection, Rosie.
5G, baby. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. No, nice to have those two guests and get their take on the Maple Leafs in general. It's just so funny. Everyone kind of has the same idea. It's just their whole deal is, yeah, they look damn good, but we'll see. We'll see. A lot of reason to think they could do something this year, but I don't think anyone's confident enough to totally say that out loud. Again, they got to prove it.
Yes, they do. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app today and use the code NATION. That's NATION, NATION, to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. So, Rosie, it's the Leafs and Panthers here on a Thursday night. The debuts on home ice of Lawton and Carlo. I'm taking the under in this hockey game.
The undie. Think the tendies are going to be doing it. Yeah, okay, cool. I got a little parlay coming your way. It's very optimistic.
Cook it up, baby.
It's the Leafs money line. Austin Matthews tickles the twine. Simple as that. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see to just really forge ahead down these last bunch of games. I need that guy going. I need them to prove that they are as good or better than those teams in their division. I need them to win that goddamn division. So that's what my parlay is tonight.
Wow. How about you
Like
entering on fire today with a little parlay for Leafs Morning Take?
I wouldn't say on fire. I butchered like 3 things throughout this hour, but going to finish strong.
I might have to talk to my friends over at Bet365 and see if we can bake into the app a Leafs Morning Take, like weekly parlay or a daily parlay, if that piques your interest, Rosie.
A super boost, an LMT.
Yeah, we can do it.
Boost.
I'm sure they'd be open to it, man, if you're open to that stuff.
Oh, I believe they would. They're small potatoes, that little company.
Whoa.
Hey, just follow our show. That's all you got to do. They are a monster. That's why I use them. But you don't have to go and do that. You can just listen to our show, then open up your app, smash everything we got, and your mortgage will be taken care of.
Hell yeah. Probably not. Rosie, great job. Great to have you back in the mix. And we'll be back on Friday for the Friday edition. Can you believe it? A week today, right now at this time, we'll be in Nashville, Tennessee, probably on Broadway, having a couple drinks.
Couple beers. You might have a martini or something. What are you going to drink down there?
Going to look for my cider, my infamous cider. You know, I'm not a big beer guy. Cider.
Beer and clam, baby. Get on it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that trip.
Can't believe it's already here. Looking forward to that one. So thank you to our two guests firstly here. Keith Tkachuk, Keith Yandle for dropping by. The folks in the chat, great as per usual. Thank you so much for the super chats as well. At the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take. Wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit the LeafsNation.com. Leafs Cats is going to be a good one. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.